Gamers, we're about to embark. And by the way, I just want to say I'm subscribed to Magic's channel. I'm just on incognito mode. But I am subscribed to Magic's channel, of course, and you should too. He's the GOAT. Tier list, who has the strongest knights? Now, I'm going to give a prediction. I haven't watched this video. And by the way, Magic doesn't mind when I watch his videos. He appreciates when I give him a shout out and everything. Yeah, this man is AoE 4 Spirit of the Law. So make sure you subscribe. Magic is back in AoE 4. And he's making great videos, great editing, great everything, okay? Now, I'm going to make a prediction. The best knight in the game. I don't know. So I already heard that people said that apparently the knights are fighting each other. I would say Cataphract is probably the strongest. And I would probably say the second or even third would be a surprise, like something you wouldn't expect. And then the ones most like gold players think are OP are actually at the bottom. Well, okay, Schlachter is OP as fuck, to be honest. Schlachter is OP as fuck.
A unit that serves multiple purposes, from raiding, securing map control, and attacking your opponent. But it comes with a hefty price tag. It's such an interesting unit because even pro players don't agree which one is the best. So let's pull up the stats, the battles, the buffs, and more to find out what is truly the strongest and the weakest knight in the game.
Whoa!
So in order for us to judge the best and the worst knight, I think we have to segment it based on the age. Age 2, Age 3, and Age 4. The reason we have to do this is because the knight's power level changes throughout these ages, and then the parameters at what makes them useful also changes. So for example, raiding might be very, very useful for a knight in Age 2, but as we get to Age 3 and Age 4, that might fall off a little bit.
Right.
Stuff like this changes the landscape. Another thing that we have to take into consideration.
Okay, what is this? Unit 1, Unit 2. My dented? Is this food? HP? Bro, Cataphract doesn't have 180 HP. What do you... It should be food, no? But why is it marked as... Okay, I thought... Okay, whatever. This is food, this is gold. This is total cost, I guess. This is HP, this is armor, damage, and so on and so forth.
Is that a knight's power level, or rather its technologies will impact his strength, right? So for example, these knights and sofas, as they're fighting here, you can see that the sofas are going to get absolutely annihilated by an Age 2 knight, right? So I'm just going to fast forward a little bit towards the end, and you can see that the knights handily win the 4 sofa with 2 knights remaining. But the moment you get imported armor, and let's say you give the knights cantled saddles, then the landscape changes once again. Now sofa are actually better at direct engagements than the knights once Age 3 rolls around and you get these.
Wait, that's crazy.
I'm going to fast forward it to the end as well, and you can see that the sofas take a victory right here. And this power level and this dynamic...
Okay, I'm already surprised about that. I'm not going to lie, I thought sofas lose to every knight, even in castle, even with imported armor.
Continuously changes as the time goes on. So we're going to segment it. Alright, so for the feudal age, what I think is important is being able to kill villagers, being able to survive ranged damage or ranged projectiles from the town center, from towers and whatever it might be. Being able to take really good skirmishes early on. You want to go in, hit hard, and be able to get out. You also want to have some form of sustain because this is a very expensive unit, so having sustain is very valuable. And last but not least, you want to be able to have a unit that's very good in direct confrontations as well. Well, I think the feudal age is more about killing villagers and more...
Okay. Feudal age. French knights are the best. Keshiks I would put second best. Ooh, that's a hard one. French knights are definitely the best. The chandeliers might be second best. Let's see.
About skirmishes, direct engagements.
The worst have to be sofa, no?
So when it comes to these ones, let's just look at the data first. So if we're just looking at the raw statistics directly from the game, and we're going to have these 5 knights here. Now, there are some other knights in the game. You have the King, you have the Demi-Lancer, you have the Uma Bannerman, which is heavy melee cavalry as well. But I'm not going to factor those in. I think these are the more relevant units to take into consideration. And when we're looking at these, these raw statistics don't really mean anything unless you actually look at it based on its cost. That's how I think.
Like, I don't think Rus Knights are good because they don't two-shot villagers and they're equal cost and they can't heal. So I can't see them being in top 3. I would actually say French Knights, Chandelier Knights, or Keshiks, and then Rus Knights and then Sofa. That's what I would think would go. But also, just them fighting each other is like he says, you gotta compare it in more ways than just like them fighting each other for raiding and everything else.
I think is important because you can have 300 damage, for example, but if it costs 3,000 resources, what good is it, right?
Right.
So we have to compare its statistics directly to its cost. So we're going to do that in a sec. But another thing we have to take into consideration is its bonuses, right? So these are the notes right here.
Yeah.
French Royal Knight gets an extra 5 seconds of additional damage, 3 damage a shot, if it was able to do a successful charge. So this is an important thing to take into consideration.
Wasn't it plus 5 damage? I thought it was 5.
Keshiks, they heal up as they attack, 3 HP per shot. This can be useful. You can use this on Gaia. It doesn't have to be on military units, right? The Chevalier gets an extra 1 health per nearby heavy cavalry. Too. Cool bonus there. And then the last but not least, the Keshik, the Sofa gets an extra +2 versus infantry. So that's its bonus. Another thing to keep in mind is the Sofa is the fastest of all the knight units. Okay, so that's a little introduction to the units itself.
Yeah, but their charge
let's start
sucks.
diving into the analysis.
Their
right?
charge sucks.
So look at the charge attack. Now, the only unit without a charge, a real charge, is the Sofa. It does get a speed up, but it doesn't get any additional
D tier.
So that's -1 point in my opinion for the Sofa. Everything else is pretty standard. I would say these 3 have 3 damage, whereas these 2 have 2 damage. So the Sofa and the Chevalier, a little bit worse when it comes to projectile damage, which you can see in this category right here. This is the amount of time each of these units is able to survive under town center fire.
Oh yeah, I just want to say, he really cooked with the numbers. Holy fuck. Even the shots under TC with Garrison, without Garrison. Jesus.
You can see the Royal Knight can survive 83 seconds under a town center. And if there's 15 villagers garrison, it can survive around 8. So still very, very tanky unit, right? But when you compare it to the Keshik, it goes down to 63. And when you compare it to the Sofa and the Chevalier, it goes down to 58. So key winner here is the early Knight and the Royal Knight, followed by the Keshik, and then the Sofa and the Chevalier.
Okay.
Now, a very important element is being able to kill villagers. Who does it the best? In my opinion, the Royal Knight does it the best. You can do it in 2 shots if you're able to get a charge off. And then the rest of them are pretty similar, and the Chevalier is by far the worst. Now, even though I'd say they're similar, the Sofa, in my opinion, is better at killing villagers because it's a little bit faster, so you can kind of catch up with them. So I would say the Sofa is slightly ahead of the Keshik here. And I also don't think the Sofa is that far behind when it comes to time under town center, because since the Sofa is faster, it can kind of get away from harm's way, whereas the Keshik would be a little bit harder for you to get out of the town center fire. So Sofa, I think, it's still pretty much neck and neck with the Keshik, and the Chevalier is behind both of them in my opinion. So that's that. Now let's look at direct engagements. For direct engagements, HP per cost and raw DPS per cost are very important. You can see that early Knight is kind of in between in terms of HP with the Sofa, the Chevalier, and the Keshik. It's better than the Keshik, but it's worse than the Sofa and the Chevalier. However, I think these guys hit way harder with their charge, and they're really good in skirmishes, and they have 3 armor, so we have to consider that as well. So since these have 3 armor and a little bit worse in terms of HP per cost, I think they're pretty close to the Sofa and the Chevalier, but a little bit worse. But not as bad as the numbers might make them look to be. In terms of raw DPS per cost, this doesn't take into consideration the charge, which the early Knight and the
that's the thing.
Really...
Okay, but that's the thing though. Raw DPS per cost, Knights, especially in Feudal Age, are all about charge. Like It's literally the most important age for the charge fights, like pulling back, charging, and doing all that is the feudal age. You're not gonna have a fight in feudal where you have 20 sofas just auto attacking against other units, right? Same with knights. It's usually back and forth charging and so on and so forth.
Strong charge. So even though the sofa has the highest raw DPS per cost, it doesn't have additional damage on its charge. So I would say take the sofa down a little bit. You can kind of see that the numbers are not the end all, right? It's something to look at, something to take into consideration and think about, but you can't base your judgment on these alone because there are other parameters that would start intervening. So, I mean, it should be pretty clear here. The Royal Knight kills villagers the fastest. The Royal Knight can stay under the town center the longest. The Royal Knight is the best in skirmishes because it has the best charge attack, and it has bonus damage on its attack if it gets a successful charge. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious the Royal Knight's at the top. Now, if this wasn't enough, then you also have another thing, which is chivalry. The Royal Knights have chivalry.
Yeah, they're by far the best.
Extremely valuable in the early game, which would allow the Royal Knight to heal itself. That alone, I think the chivalry is one of the reasons why it's so far in the S tier.
Like, okay, if I had to rate him by tier, I would put Sofa last. Okay, maybe not last. I would actually put Rus Knights last. Okay, I'm putting this S tier, Rus Knights last, Sofa C tier, Keshik B tier, Chandelier A tier. Boom.
That these ones are not even close. Now, who's second place? Well, in terms of second, I think there's also a pretty close second, which is the early knight. I value being able to kill villagers. I value being able to take as much range projectile damage. And I think the early knight is pretty much the same as the royal knight, right?
I
a little bit worse when it comes to killing villagers, but time under town center, it's exactly the same. I think if I was able to choose from these four, which one I would choose would probably be the royal knight. So I'm going to move it up to the A tier. Now, I think I also think I would take the sofa in a lot of...
Okay, the thing is, I'm looking at this under a different light. I'm looking at this in like realistic game type of light, but I feel like this is more of a video of like which knights are strongest per cost with their upgrades, like if we're mashing units. If you guys follow the pro game, nobody makes Rus Knights in Feudal Age because they're not good. They don't two-shot villagers, they're very expensive. For that reason, I rate Rus Knights the lowest. And usually your goal as Rus is, if you go 2TC, you don't go immediately into Knights because you can't. So you have to go Spearman or Archer. But if you usually play Rus, you go Pro Scout with Spearman and Archer again into Fast Castle and then... Archers, Spearmen, and then you go Fast Castle into Horse Archers, and then in Castle you go for Knights. Like, I don't remember the last time that I've played like a tournament game where someone was like going Knight Archer with Rus against any Civ, you know? It's just not a thing. But I guess the video is more based on like pure stats and stuff. In which case, I guess it's different. But like chandeliers and you guys know, Keshiks are like in every fucking Mongol game, you know?
Instances as well. And I'm gonna put the sofa in right below the early knight. And the reason why is if we look at this, right? I told you the royal knights and the early knights do the best under town center. They have the best. They're really good in killing villagers, but the sofa is not that far off. And the reason why the sofa does so well in these parameters as well is because it has more speed than the rest of the knights. Now, the one thing that the sofa, in my opinion, takes the lead over these is being able to have better direct engagements. It has more HP per cost than the early knight and the royal knight, and it has pretty strong raw DPS, right? It's especially versus infantry, it's just a powerhouse. So if we were to change its attack from right here 17 and we were to give it 19, you can see, because that's the bonus it would get versus infantry, it would be so far above the rest of them, right? So it does a lot better versus infantry.
Yeah, but if you're making sofa in feudal against spearmen and you're just auto attacking, your sofas are gonna vanish like that. So that's why I'm saying it's like on paper, sure. But what infantry are you going to be hitting in Feudal? You're probably hitting fucking spearmen, right? And sofas have very low HP, so they're just going to fucking vanish immediately.
Infantry. It has really good survivability when it comes to its HP. And then next up, I think what I would take, is the Chevalier. I personally am not a big fan of the Sofa, and I'm going to compare these two in a sec, but I think the Sofa, I'm not a big fan of the Keshik. So I'm going to put the Keshik in last, and I'm going to put the Chevalier second last, and let's take a look why. So let's go over here in this direct melee comparison table. I'm going to put the Keshik on the left-hand side, and the Chevalier is already there on the right. You can see if we're using them on the same cost basis, it would be 17 Keshiks and 20 Chevalier. 20 Chevalier is way higher in the HP dynamic, and it's also way higher in the damage dynamic. Now, if you're thinking about it, these Chevalier would get an extra 20 HP just because you have...
But watch this. Doesn't take charge into consideration, right? Like, again, this is assuming auto-attacking each other, which is not what happens in real games. You will very often have charges going through, have con and shit like that. So
these Chevalier would get an extra 20 HP just because you have that many in the fight, right? Because that's their bonus. So it would go up to 180 HP. And this is like insane if you think about it, because now it's going to be roughly 50% more HP than a Keshik. And its damage is higher than a Keshik as well. Now the Keshik is not absolutely terrible. I just don't think it's... I mean, I would still use the Keshik if I was a Mongol player. It does have good sustain, being able to kill Gaia or whatever for 3 HP a shot, but I just don't think it's that good. I don't think the Keshik is a great unit. I think it synergizes well with Mongols in some aspects, like with the Khan and with the trade and whatnot. But if I were to pick, I think I would pick my knights in this list right here. All right, so
okay, so again, he's picking them based on bonuses / head-on fights, I feel like. In real games, in my opinion, I'm not saying he's wrong. He's taking a different approach to this. He's taking a very, like, mathematical approach. In my opinion, French knights are S tier by far. Then I would probably put Rus knights last. I would put probably Keshiks A tier. The thing is, Chandelier kind of fell out of fashion, so maybe Chandelier... Like, to be honest, nobody plays KT on land, and then people are going with the other age-up, mostly Hospitalier, so maybe they are C tier and then B tier Sofa. I don't know. That's my opinion in, like, actual games. Yeah, I don't know if he calculated the 3 HP.
My knights in this list right here.
Boom. Next.
All right, so in the Castle Age, the dynamic kind of stays the same, where you're still fighting for relics, you're fighting for sacred sites, you're going to be doing some raids, but now there's bigger emphasis on taking a decisive engagement and winning the game right on there, right? So this is where I would put combat stats more at the forefront instead of the other elements we talked about in Feudal. And one of the civilizations that I think is very underrated and has one of the best knights in the game is the Ottoman Knight. Now, why is the Ottoman Knight so high up the list? Now, I want you to take this into consideration. The Zushi Cavalry tech bonus gives it 20% attack speed. The Ottoman Meter allegedly says 15%, but when we look at these two figures on the knights itself, you can see that the Ottoman Knight attacks faster. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, it's probably only a couple points off. Does that make a difference? But yes, it makes a huge difference because the knight's damage is so high up there, and that's why this is significant. And the other question we might be asking ourselves is, if the Zushi Cavalry says 20% and the Ottoman Meter says 15%, which one is correct and which one is wrong? That's a question for another day, but something to take into consideration. The Ottoman Knight, bear in mind, doesn't have any special text or whatnot, but it has the Meter. And the Meter...
Okay, I'm gonna have to question the process here. We should have also counted that Keshiks are then produced with stone and deer stones. and con. Also, does this mean that English knights are the best because they get 30% attack speed with the upgrade? Do you know what I mean? Like, Mekter is not a given. It's another unit you're adding to it.
Would give it not only speed, but it gives it attack speed. And one of the coolest or most important things about knights actually is that attack speed is it's even more important sometimes than attack damage and HP, because the Ottoman knight gets a buff by the Metro attack speed, and you can see that in a lot of the B-roll footage that I'm going to have be playing, the Ottoman knight actually wins against every other knight on this list except for one. That one being the Japanese samurai.
Oh.
Now the Japanese samurai and the Ottoman knight go head on head quite a bit. There was a lot of RNG. Sometimes the Ottoman knight wins, sometimes the mounted lancer wins, but the mounted samurai rather would win if you get an extra +1 damage. Most of the times, if you get the +1 damage and the Uma Batterman of course is alive, then you'll start winning these engagements. However, the Ottoman knight still is insanely strong because the Ottoman knight gets 1.87 speed. It's so fast. It can travel faster than, I believe, a horseman. Or
wait, does this count for the Mekter Vizier point?
close to a horseman, and it can just traverse the entire map and it can fight wherever it wants. So a lot of these units, for example, the Templar Brothers, which we're going to talk about soon, has more HP. The Cataphract has more HP, but the Ottoman Knight, despite not having more HP, it gets to choose the battles it wants to fight because it's so fast. If it's under a town center, it can get out of town center rage pretty quickly. If it doesn't want to take an engagement, it can leave. That's why I'm putting the Ottoman Lancer so far up, and the Mounted Samurai is obviously up there as well. These two go pretty much neck and neck. Now, one of the civilizations, or one of the knights that I think gets a lot of love on Reddit, and a lot of players love this knight, but I don't think it's that good. It's the Gilded Knight. Now, let's just compare the Gilded Knight, for example. Let's say the Gilded Knight is being compared to just a standard lance, and you can see it's basically a 2-for-1, right? It's half the cost. A knight is half the cost of a Gilded Knight, so it's 2-to-1. But if you look at the stats, the total HP favors the actual generic knight. So it has more HP and it has more damage, which is kind of insane to think about, right? So even though it's double the cost, it doesn't get double the stats. Now it does perform kind of well in some instances.
That's the same for a lot of OTD units. All of them are double the cost, but you don't actually get double the value. So they're weaker, technically.
But when I just tested this versus an Abba Knight, the Abba Knight, which is generic, vanilla, doesn't have anything special going for it, actually beats the Gilded Knight. Now the Gilded Knight does beat the Cataphract, so let's pull up the Cataphract right here. The Gilded Knight actually has more worse stats rather than the Cataphract, but it actually wins. And this is important to note because this right here doesn't factor in a charge. And the fact that it doesn't factor in a charge means that this is one of the reasons why the Gilded Knight does better than the Cataphract. The Cataphract having no charge is a major liability. Now the Cataphract is going to be used in different ways, but since we talked about it already, the Cataphract is not something that you can really raid with that well because it doesn't have a charge. It's not something that you can contest a lot of relics and sacred sites with as well. It doesn't do as well in small skirmishes as a result, but it does really good in one.
In my opinion, Cataphracts are like maybe second best knights in the game.
Which is it's able to do well in head-on battles because of its HP, especially when you pair this with Hippodrome and you have archers behind it, so the longbowmen. That's when the Cataphract truly shines. So I think that's why Marine Lord, in the beginning of this video, you saw that he favors the Cataphract. It's for those elements. It's the fact that it has really good synergy with...
Yeah, I would maybe put Japanese first, Byzantine second, but Cataphracts are broken as fuck. Like, straight up. Those things kill everything in actual games.
Cataphract, it's for those elements. It's the fact that it has really good synergy with the rest of the kit that Byzantines have. But overall, as a knight, I don't think it's that good. Honestly, I started off by thinking the Cataphract was one of the top picks, But the more I actually tested it, I just found that it's lacking. And the fact that it's lacking a charge is one of the main reasons why I don't put it in the A
That's
tier.
crazy.
But it is good in other areas where it has a trample, which you can get into positions, get on top of crossbowmen and stuff like that. But I think most of the time, just the charge itself is more important. So I'm going to be putting this.
You can charge on top of mangonels and kill them. Like, you cannot make mangonels against cataphracts because they can just go through and kill them. That's very hard to put in numbers and value.
In the B tier, and I'm going to be putting the Gilded Knight pretty low.
Gilded Knight
I
is
think the Gilded
D
Knight
tier.
is just not good
No,
for
D
its
tier.
costs. I would prefer even an Abbot Knight over the Gilded Knight. And this is a little controversial.
Sure.
I'm not going to include this tier, so I'm just going to remove it. But this is a little controversial, but this is what I see as being true. Now, let's talk about the Camel Lancer for a second, right? So, which is
S
this
tier.
unit right here. The Camel Lancer is
F tier.
interesting because it has a bonus versus, let me just put this here. It has a bonus versus Cavalry, which is anything within its aura, it debuffs Cavalry
Maybe
by
A
20%.
tier.
So you might initially think, wow, this is really good.
What would I put in S tier? Japanese samurai, cataphracts, royal knights with bloodline. But that's see, that's the thing. Do you count that? Because that's an Imperial upgrade. I would probably put Camel Lancers in S tier too. I would put those three in S tier.
In knight-on-knight battles, but really it's not. The Camel Lancer is lacking just raw stats. So if you look at one Camel Lancer versus one knight, while they cost the same, the Camel Lancer actually costs more gold. So let's take a look right here. It costs 10 more gold and 10 less food. Now sometimes this is favorable because food is it's a more scarce resource, but I think I would still prefer 140 food and 100 gold. The other thing to take into consideration is it has lower total HP and it has lower total damage. So while it might be good versus cavalry, it's not good in dealing with other units as well as knights do, right? That's not...
I mean, okay, again, doesn't factor in charge. I mean, Camel Lancer has lower damage because the longer it charges, the higher the damage is. So their charge is fucking like insane damage, right? Another thing that you can't put in numbers, or it's hard to put in numbers, is the debuff. But also, another thing you can't put in numbers is, yes, it costs more gold, but you also almost always get more gold as IamMagic because you get the relics.
Dealing with other units as well as knights do, right? That's not even the worst thing about this unit. The worst thing about this unit, it does really well versus civilizations that have a generic knight. So think about Abbasid, think about, you know, Delhi, for instance, early on. Now the Delhi has an upgrade, but we'll talk about that later. But anytime you have an unupgraded knight, the Camel Lancer does well. Camel Lancer does very well versus the Sofa as well. When the Sofa is fully upgraded with the imported armor, it becomes kind of like 50-50, well, I'll say 60-40. Camel Lancer still wins most of those engagements. But the fact that it has lower base stats, the fact that it actually starts losing to most of these knight units when the knight units get some sort of upgrades, is one of the reasons why I don't really rank this that highly. I would rank this a little bit above the Byzantine Cataphract.
Okay,
and the reason
that's
being is it
crazy.
has an extended charge, which actually is very useful when it comes to raiding. It can charge double the distance, I believe, as regular units do. So that's that. Now another fan favorite is the French Knight, and initially I had the French Knight in S tier in the Feudal Age, but when it comes to the Castle Age, I don't think it's lacking a lot of its allure, and the reason why is
Oof. Okay,
Yes, the attack
okay, stop. Okay, stop right now. Okay, I don't mean this to like bash Magic. I love Magic, he's a great guy, and he's making this pure off of stats. But that's crazy, okay? This, I agree. This is illegal. Putting French Knights above these two is crazy. French Knights fall off in castle like this in terms of value. French very often transitions into horsemen very quickly. Unless he's counting Royal Institute, which I feel like... I mean, I don't know how I feel about that.
On Ottoman, and the deflective armor and the Uma Bannerman on the mounted samurai, I think make these two units S. Now, the French Knight has cantoed saddles, which gives it plus 10 damage after a charge, but from my testing, once armies become too large, you're not even going to benefit from this as much. It's good when armies are somewhat small and you can get the full charge off on all your units, but the larger the armies get, the less impactful cantoed saddles is. Still a good upgrade, and still, if you get the charge off, it's cool, but it's only 5 seconds. It's not really that, it's not sustained for that long. Now, chivalry also kind of falls off. It's still useful. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but it falls off because a lot of these knights are going to be able to have monk support, right? Or imam support, or whatever the case might be. They have healing in other areas. That's why I put the French in A tier. There's still a lot to go through, so I'm going to go a little bit faster here.
Wait, so he didn't even count? Wait, he didn't even count Royal Institute? No, dude. What are these? Jushi? A tier.
Fushi, I think I put it above the French Knight, and this is going to be controversial once again, but Fushi has a really good upgrade, which is dolly horses. I
That's
believe.
not controversial.
It says the
pretty sure everyone like that's a good one. The 20% attack speed on Knight is crazy.
tooltip says it's 20%, but it's not 20%. It's actually bugged. This is a 15% attack speed
Still
upgrade.
good.
So if you look at the Ottoman Knight, and you can...
and it doesn't even need a Mekter. It's just on its own.
Put the Ottoman Knight against the Fushi Knight, the Ottoman Knight wins. Now the Fushi Knight against the Royal Knight from French, the Fushi Knight actually wins most of these engagements. Now there is RNG, but I would say it's like 70-30 for the Fushi Knight over the French Knight. And that's why I think this one I would put at the top of the A tier. The Rus Knight is definitely not going to be above the French Knight. Once you get Boyar's Fortitude, you start beating the Camel Lancer, or you come close to it, I would say. And you are, in my opinion, it is a better knight than the Cataphract. So I would put the Rus Knight in the bottom of the A tier. And now the Keshik. I also think the Keshik is one of the worst knights in the game. I still think that it has nothing really special about it. Let's scroll down for a second. Let's put the Keshik up against a generic Lancer. You can see that in terms of HP, it's lower. In terms of damage, it's lower. And the upgrade it gets for...
To be fair, Keshiks get a lot better in Castle compared to Feudal. Like, if you think of if Keshik is a unit in Feudal, they are not great. But once they get to Castle, I feel like they get much stronger.
Step horses, which is gives it an extra 10% or so attack speed. It's not even that impactful. When I put these two units up against one another, the Lancer Knight just annihilates the Keshik. And that's not even comparing it to some of these other heavy units or top tier units. The Keshik falls off. The Keshik synergizes with some of Mongo's kit rather. Step Red Out gives you a lot of gold. If you have trade, it's really good in terms of that as well. It's a good unit to actually put excess resources towards, but I don't think it's anything significant. That's why I put it at the bottom of the C tier.
Bro, he's about to put Templar Brothers S tier.
The Ammonite doesn't have anything special going for it. I still think it's better than the Keshik. I think it's better than the Gilded Knight. The Delhi Knight gets honed blades, which gives it +3 attack. I think the Delhi Knight is around the same level. I would say maybe a little bit below the Cataphract. It's a generic knight with one upgrade that you can get. It synergizes really well with the Imam play from Delhi once you get all the scholar upgrades rather. So I think it's kind of a toss-up between these two. I don't know which one I would prefer. I think I would prefer the Delhi Knight with honed blades over the Cataphract, but since that takes a little bit of time, I think this is kind of what I believe to be true. The Chinese Knight, kind of like the Ammonite, it's pretty generic. I don't think it's anything special going for it. The cool thing is you're able to spam these out because you have a really strong economy, but that's not the point of this tier list right here. The English Knight gets to benefit from Citadel of Castles, which is going to give you attack speed bonuses, and attack speed bonuses on knights.
Why is it not S tier?
Are absolutely massive. You got to remember that. So I would put this higher up. If you have towers in variant locations and you're able to benefit from the attack speed buff, this is way higher up the list. But since you're going to be fighting for sacred sites, relics, raids and stuff, you're not going to have castles, the network of castles bonus readily available. So that's why I kind of put it a little bit lower, but don't underestimate that castles network of castles tech or bonus rather. Okay, HRE Knight gets 1 upgrade with the mine work, which gives it +2 armor. I still think Honed Blades is better, but this one is still better than these generic knights over here. Going back to this list, I do think I put the Keshik below the OOTD knight. I think
Magic hates Mongols. he hates Mongols.
It's still the worst knight in the game. Now these are very interesting.
Yeah,
now,
next time I play Magic on the ladder, I'm gonna pick Mongol and I'm gonna go Mass Keshik against. I'm just gonna make Keshiks, nothing else.
This one here is not a generic knight. So this is the, what's the civilization name? I'm drawing a blank right now, but this knight is better than a lot of these knights. It has 1 extra tech, which is Caller of Esses, and it's House of Lancaster, sorry. So this gives you +5 bonus damage, right? But the only issue is it's tied to a landmark that most people are not going. So it is really good in knight-on-knight battles, but usually most people are not going for that landmark. The other thing is, even with the +5 bonus damage against heavy units, the Fushi Cavalry, from my test, still beat it with the attack speed bonus. So I would say that with that technology, it's probably way higher up the list. But since that landmark is not generally used that much, I think I put it a little bit lower. Now the Sofa is something very interesting, I find, because the Sofa has some of the best stats on paper. So if I look at the Sofa and I compare it to a generic knight, it has way more HP, has way more damage. It's a very good knight, especially with imported armor. You get 5 armor, which is really good. Makes it really tanky. The only issue is it doesn't have a proper charge. It has the same attack damage on a charge.
Don't say it.
Also, from my testing, a lot of the times the charge was bugged because it does the charge and then there's a delay before the next attack. You don't even want to charge sometimes. And the Sofa versus the Camel Lancer is slightly below the Camel Lancer, which is interesting. Now, the Sofa, I used to put it really high up, but then the more testing I did, the more I realized that initial charge is so important, right? However, the Sofa synergizes really well with the Malian kit. They get a lot of gold. And on top of that, the Sofa is one of the fastest units here, right? It has 1.72 speed. It's slower than an Ottoman with the Meter, but it's still really fast. I would pick the Sofa over most of these knights right here. And I would put it in the bottom of the A tier. And this one is a really interesting knight, which is a Templar Brothers. Let me just pull up the stats. But if you look at the Templar Brothers stats, it's 20 extra resources. So it's 20 extra, it changes it. So it's less food and way more gold. It's 260 resources, but instead you get a whopping 275 HP over a regular knight. So this is kind of huge. So let's go down here to our comparison list. In terms of its actual, it would be 12 Templar Brothers versus 13 Lancers. And it has way more HP. It has a little bit less damage, but this doesn't factor in the charge, right? And it has less damage because this one has an extra unit involved, right? But the Templar Brothers has such a cool technology, and at first I didn't think this was really that important. It's Rule of the Templars. This gives +2 charge damage per nearby charging heavy cavalry. I think this is even better than the French one because you can completely decimate an entire front line with this charge. The front line is important, but once you get this charge off and you get a successful charge off, it does a ton of damage. Imagine you have 20 Templars, right? That's +2 charge damage per each. So that's 20 extra damage. It's actually huge. I tested this quite a bit in a lot of my simulations, and it did really, really well. So I think this is a very good unit. I personally think I would take it over all of these. And I think this is a little bit closer. I think Camel Lancer has its place in the meta.
Okay, I pause right here. Okay. Obviously, like I said, he is ranking them based, like, from what I'm understanding, and I might be understanding wrong, but he is ranking them like cost for cost, same, and then they're just fighting. And he is not counting the charge damage in the calculations, but then in the simulations he does sometimes, or he does always, I'm not sure. But it just sounds like he's just testing them who has like more DPS, more health, and so on and so forth. I love this video, by the way. So even when I didn't play Age of Empires 2, I watched Spirit of the Law videos because I found them interesting. And I love that there's this type of content, okay? I love it. But at the same time, I have made tier lists like this. If you guys remember, like the best spearman in the game, the best archer in the game. And I found them very hard to make. Yes, some archers are better, for example, but you don't really use them because of X or Y, right? So it's like, okay, on paper, yes, but in reality, no. So yeah, I think these kinds of videos are amazing, and if Magic is okay with it, I'm gonna react and watch every single one of his videos. I'm gonna promote every single one of his videos. It's amazingly edited. I love it. The research is there. All that being said, this might be like what you call pound for pound kind of fighting. In reality, this is how I would change the list, okay? I mean like in real games and how the games play out, at least at the high level, okay? Accounting for what other units you can make, the cost, the state of the game, the flow of the game, and everything else, right? S tier is Mounted Samurai because of deflective armor, because it blocks attacks. It's very strong. You can build them very quickly. S tier easily. Second best, or even best, I'm not sure which one I would put, is Cataphract. Cataphract is extremely strong because it is extremely tanky. It does a fuck ton of damage. You cannot make siege against Byzantine because Cataphracts can charge through the army, just get on top of Nestubis and Mangonels. And any type of range comp like longbows and crossbows with Cataphracts is extremely strong because Cataphracts kill horsemen, they will kill the siege, and then it's extremely hard to fight that Byzantine army. One of the strongest, if not the strongest armies in the game, in my opinion, is Cataphract longbow. It's insanely strong. So for that reason, I put Mounted Samurai, Cataphracts in S tier. Then I would put Camel Lancers in S tier as well. The reason why I would put Camel Lancers is they're very strong at chasing enemy knights because their charge lasts longer, which means that they're very likely to hit, and the longer they charge, the more damage they do. Which also they debuff enemy cavalry, which makes the enemy shy away from the cavalry, which makes you have all the tempo because you have the cavalry, the enemy doesn't, which is very important. Not to mention, if you age up with military wing, they can make siege too, right? So for me, S tier, Mounted Samurai, Camel Lancer, Cataphract. A tier, I would probably put Jushi Legacy Knights. I would put Sofas for sure. Kashik, French Knights, Rus Knights. Not in that specific... Well, Sofa and Jushi Legacy Knights are definitely better, but then I would put French Knights, Rus Knights, and Kashiks. Kashiks are a lot better in Castle than they are in Feudal Age. I mentioned this earlier. The C tier, for me, is, just the Knights that don't have anything. For Gilded Knights are very good to make 2 to 3. To continue making them, I think is very bad, so I'd put them in C tier. Abbasid Knights, they are... see, the thing is, Abbasid Knights are usable. Like, Abbasid Knight plus Archer combo is very strong, but we still don't see it very often. Chinese Knights is a bit weird because Chinese Knights are made every single game, but technically they don't have any bonuses. But because of their economy, they are still made like every game. So that one is a weird one to like, where do you put it, right? You make it every single game, you go for the Chinese Knights, but they don't have any bonuses. So what does that mean, right? That's why making lists like this is very weird. So I don't know where I would put it. English Knights, you are very rarely going to be able to... Like, it would have to be some kind of passive game where you can actually even make the Knights. You're usually on the defensive, right? And yeah, you're most likely not going to be fighting a network of Citadel, so I would probably put it in C tier. These Knights, I would also put in C tier. Yes, with the upgrade, they're a lot better, but currently nobody almost goes for that landmark, so I would put it in C tier. Delhi Knights are technically not bad, but the problem with Delhi Knights is it's like, okay, you can either make elephants or you can make knights. And if you're like, well, I want to raid, you can just make Ghazi Raiders, which are extremely OP and then not waste gold. So I would put them in B tier. I would leave them there. HRE Knights, I mean, you only get the steel bard upgrade if you go mine work, so that's very situational. But I would put it in B tier still. But then you get like, you know, more gold as HRE, so technically the knights are cheaper, right? Because of Regnant's Cathedral. And then Templar Brothers. I mean, Templar Brothers are good, but honestly, in my genuine opinion, I don't play KT. I don't know anyone who plays KT on land at the top level, so I don't even know where to put them. Yes, in theory, they're better, but it's like, you know. But yeah, Chinese Knights, like I said, they're made every single game, but they don't have any bonuses, although they do have dynasties, so it's a hard one. But that's kind of how I would rate that.
Versus knights that are not upgraded or don't have many bonuses. But the Templar Brothers, I think, is just a really good, strong force to take on an enemy.
Like, if you have Templar Brothers, they are strong.
Take it with a grain of salt. There are a lot of details that I can't put into the video because it's already super long. So I'm just gonna say that this is what I truly believe is the Castle Age tier list.
Oh yeah, and Ottoman Knights. I forgot about that. Ottoman Knights, like I would put him in C tier. He counted in Mechter Vizier point with movement speed, which is like, you never get that. Right? Like, you never get that. So the movement speed part can be cut out. And then the attack speed part is, if you watch any of the pro games, you do make knights with Ottoman when you age up, so you can do some good harassment. But what do you make right after you make like 5 to 10 knights? You make the most broken unit in the game, which is Sipahi. Sipahi kills everything except like one unit, and then for that one unit you can make a counter to it. So it's like, it's not about knight being good with Mechter. It's like, you can either make Mechter, or sorry, you can either make Sipahi or knights. You're always gonna make Sipahi. Sipahi are just better, and Sipahi are also better at raiding, but initially the knights are better. Can Sipahi kill men-at-arms? Yeah, easily. And then if you need like counter knight, you just make janissaries. If you need counter spearmen, you can make janissaries or archers or springald. And like, Sipahi are just so good that if maybe Ottoman had normal horsemen, maybe I would rank their knights higher, but they have Sipahi, so.
Say that this is what I truly believe is the Castle Age tier list. Alright guys, so in the Imperial Age, it's all about taking, in my opinion, cost-effective engagements. That's the key. Now, I was going to do a full tier list, but I think a significant amount of testing is going to be required, and it is Sunday afternoon, and I actually have to go.
Schlachter Cavalleria, number 1 by far. It's not even fucking close. Royal Knights D tier. What is this? Is this Templar Brother? Schlachter S tier, this is under than this, than this.
If you guys really want to see this, let me know in the comment section below and I can do it. But the four units that come to mind when it comes to the Imperial Age is the French Knight, the 2 Knights Templar Knights, right, which is the Schlachter Cavalry, and you also have the Templar Brothers. These come into mind, and then we also have the Imperial Guard from Zushi. In my opinion, when you factor in cost, and you just factor in the sheer upgrades that you can get, I think the Royal Knight comes out so far ahead of these ones. And it's strange because when you look at the raw stats, the Schlachter...
Okay, he has not played against Schlachter Cavalleria.
Cavalry stats on paper are absolutely insane, right? You got like
No, on paper, on the wall, on the cardboard, on the notepad, on the sticky notes, on the whatever, Schlachter Cavalleria is by far the fucking best. They kill... Guys, I want you to understand, I had a game where I was Delhi. Listen to me. I had a game where I was Delhi. I was massing elephants, melee elephants, and the hand cannon elephants, and I died to pure Schlachta Cavalleria. I died to units that I'm supposed to counter. The end.
Best units in the game, probably, if not
The
the
end.
best unit in the game. But when you factor in cost and you can realize that, okay, this knight here, this royal knight, I can get him for 180 resources. He has biology that's going to give him 35% instead of 25%. And then you get the bonus damage after the charge as well. You realize the royal knight at this cost point is just better than the Schlotza cavalry. Now, if you have a full 200 pop army and you don't care about cost, yes, the Schlotza cavalry would be better, probably the Imperial Guard too, but at a cost point, I think the the Royal Knight stands so far above everyone else because it's just so cheap. And in order to get it this cheap, obviously, you have to have a keep, you have to have stables around the keep, and then you need to get enlistment incentives, that technology. That's going to drive the costs down, and you can just trade these like they're horsemen even, right? So really important unit, really strong unit in the Imperial Age, mostly because of cost. When it comes to raw statistics, then you have the Schlotza cavalry. Now, I think the Schlotza cavalry is also S, because forget about if the Royal Knight was not on the field, this unit would just decimate everything else, right? It's just so good. Like, it has more speed than all of these other cavalry units. It has 1.73.
It's broken.
It has +8 versus light infantry, and projectiles do nothing to it because it has like 8 ranged armor. It's crazy. And on top of that, it decreases enemy attack speed by 20% per hit. It's a really strong unit. So if you look at this chart right here for a quick analysis, you can see the Royal Knight just comes out leagues above everyone else, and that's because of its cost, right? For cost, it's just so efficient. And let's remove the Royal Knight. Once you remove the Royal Knight, you can see the Schlotza cavalry comes in second place. So Schlotza cavalry comes second. Now, when it comes to
but hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. This is why it's so hard to make these videos. So he's saying with cost, right? Because of the keep. He's talking about the keep, like if you have stables around keeps, and then you upgrade it, and then they're cheaper, right? Do you guys know what I mean? Like, that's why he's saying per cost, I'm assuming, right? Because they're cheap. Yeah, look, 105, 75. Okay, yes, that is true. But should that not also be accounted for Japanese having Yorishiros in forges? Should that not also be counted in Templar KT having pilgrims that cost no supply? Like, if we're going to assume that all knights are made cheaper, we gotta assume that KT is also gonna have at least 5 pilgrims at that point. Do you know what I mean? So then you have Rus that gets free gold. Then you have Golden Gatehouse that gets free gold, right? So I don't think this should be counted for French, because every civ has gold bonuses or increased food gather rate. So for example, 105 food, the discounted version, right? Okay. But then like another civ might have more food gathering, which would bring the food maybe even further down than 105 per minute, if that makes sense. He's talking about the cost, not the civ income. Yes, but it's the same thing, you fucking dent. The French economy is that their units are cheaper. The other civs don't have cheaper units, they gather faster. Do you, like English gets gold from farms, right? Like, that's what I mean. Calculating this, IMO should also count 6 Yorishiros from Japanese on gold. It should count in pilgrims. It should count in, sure, military schools, right? But that's what I mean. I know he can't count all that in because it's fucking difficult to do. Because you're assuming you're spending all your gold on knights, but that's not the case. Like, yeah, whether you're getting more resources or you're using less resources to purchase the same unit, but your income is lower, it's the same shit. Thank you.
Once you remove the Royal Knight, you can see the Slots of Cavalry comes in second place. So Slots of Cavalry comes second. Now, when it comes to the Imperial Guard and...
Do you guys know that KT has like 2,000 gold per minute with 10 pilgrims in Imperial, right? They cost 0 supply. 2,000 gold per minute. Like, also, their cavalry kills everything. So basically, they can make cavalry that can kill everything, and you can basically infinitely make them, and you have more supply because you don't need traders. Right? Like, that's a package. That's why Schlachta is by far, it's not even close,
Templar Brothers.
Most broken.
The Templar Brothers actually is surprisingly a very good unit. It has the technology we talked about, which gives it +1 for Templar Brothers on a charge, and then it has Fanaticism, which is a crazy technology as well. So when these units gain extra 10% damage when below 50% health, and plus 30% when below 25%
That
health.
is OP.
This makes a huge difference in actual combat, and I think the fact that its cost is not that it's not an issue at this point of the game, because extra 20 food or whatever, or extra 20 resources, it doesn't become the hugest issue. I think this unit is actually really good. So I wouldn't be sleeping on the Knights Templar Cavalry. They're both very good units.
No, they're both okay. So this is true. Templar Brother in Imperial is also OP. If this unit didn't exist, Templar Brother would be one of the best knights. But because this exists, you never make this. And also, by going this age up, your what is it? Your cavalry units get 50% charge damage, which is just like, what?
And then on top of that, like, I think this, if I was to rank them and if I was to say which one I want, I think I would take the Imperial Guard last. And some people will be like, oh, this is blasphemy, right? But the Imperial Guard has really good stats. The Imperial Guard, which is really good HP per cost, and you see the raw DPS still goes to the Lancer. But this is the thing with the Royal Knight, or sorry, the Imperial Guard, why I keep saying that, is melee armor is really high. It's 10 melee armor, so it's good versus frontline infantry. But I don't think this is a good thing, because you don't want to be fighting spearmen in age 4, right? I think this is kind of a difficult thing to ascertain, because this is such an expensive unit. You don't want it to be going up in the front line versus cheap 60 food, 20 wood spearmen. It's not a good incentive for you. Also, it doesn't have the best ranged armor. It's just going to get shot down by crossbowmen and ranged units, hand cannons and stuff like that. So I mean, this is what I would say initially. Now, I need more testing. I'm not too confident in this tier list right here. You tell me if you guys disagree. But that's it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Okay, my opinion of Imperial Guards is like, in theory, if you have infinite gold, you do want to make them, but at the same time, by the time you get to them, it's like, it's too long. You know what I mean? You gotta get that upgrade, right? Like, you gotta get the landmark, then you gotta get the fucking upgrade, and then they're fucking expensive. Like, yes, stats-wise, they have very strong stats. So, like, per supply, they're very efficient. So what it means is, when you say per supply, they're very efficient, is like, one spearman is bad compared to one Imperial Guard. But you can't assume that you're just going to have a stream of Imperial Guards coming. But you can assume that you're going to have a stream of spearmen coming, right? So Imperial Guards are very strong, but in actual games they're just very expensive. And you can actually further buff them with the Ming Dynasty, and then you can further buff them with the other Imperial landmark that gives you 20% damage on cavalry. And I don't know if he counted that, actually. Because I feel like if you count in Mechter...
10 melee armor, so it's good. Sorry, the raw
if
DPS.
You count in Mechter for Ottoman Knights, then you should probably count in the Ming Dynasty and 20% cavalry damage from the other landmark. Right? Or don't count either of those. Because, yeah, Imperial Guards are super fucking strong, but it's like, you need insanely good economy to actually maintain it. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised because the funny thing is, I don't know where I would put Imperial guards, but it's interesting that the whole video is based on like straight up fights, right? And like efficiency. But Corvinus says that Imperial Guard beats Schlachta, and I believe him because Corvinus knows the weirdest things. And if Imperial Guard beats Schlachta, it 100% beats these two. So Magic's been ranking them by how well, like resource-wise, and how well they do against each other. But by that logic, this should be the best knight. I don't know. Either way, I found this video very informative. Obviously, like I said, I had different ranking style. I don't know where the fuck I would put this one, but Schlachta is definitely the most broken IMO. In all seriousness, like I said, I love this. I'm gonna link this in the chat. Obviously, I disagree with some things, but the sign of a good video is when you learn something new, you get the discussion going, and that's what we have done. So I linked the video for you guys in the chat. Go give it a like, give it a comment, tell him Beasty loves you. It is a good video. I mean, I love the stats and all that, and I hope he keeps making videos like these because I love watching them, and I love watching them with you guys. So shout out to Magic in the chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I'll catch you in the next one. And if you're watching live, let's keep going, brothers.